Hi everybody, my name is Shane Craven and today I'm going to demo my final year project that I developed for my degree in computer systems in University of Limerick. So my project was the fabrication of an extensible and secure baseline architecture for intelligent user interfaces. So that's a bit of a mouthful of a title, but it essentially is building a platform to allow users to have conversations with applications and providing developers with mechanisms to build those applications and providing a service for the user to interact with them. So the project is built with two main components. There's an identity management platform that handles all authentication and user management requirements of the project. But the identity management platform is built as a separate service. So any application that wishes to use it for identity management purposes can do so once they leverage the APIs available. There's APIs currently available in both Java and C#, and we'll talk a little bit more about the identity management platform later in the video. There's also the Intelligent User Interface platform. This is the platform that allows users to have conversations with applications that developer develops. An Intelligent User Interface is an application that has sophisticated knowledge of a particular domain. So the idea here is that applications provide the sophisticated knowledge of a particular area that they would provide expert knowledge in, and then allows the developer to code the scripts that can provide that knowledge and the user to interact with them by conversation. So let's have a look here at the website and we can talk through how it works. So this is the main website, osiris-net.com. So we have, first of all, we look at the application store. So when developers register an application with the Osiris service, it appears here in the application store. Users can subscribe to applications here, so you'll see I have subscribed to all of them. And once you subscribe to an application, it's available to have conversations with. So we'll have a conversation with one now to see how that works. So here we have a list of all the subscriptions that I have for applications. So I'm going to have a conversation with the University of Limerick. So now that's thing, I can see here what can I say. So this will tell us what we can actually say and ask the application, but we can also issue commands with voice. So we're going to enable that now.
Osiris voice enabled. I'm listening.
So I'm going to ask the question, for instance, what can you do? Osiris, what can you do? Osiris, what can you do?
I can provide you with helpful information on the University of Limerick. You can ask me questions like tell me about the university and what's next on my timetable.
So as you can see there, we can issue voice commands as well as type the commands into a prompt. So next we're going to ask a simple question like, we'd say add my timetable to my calendar. But for an effective service, we need to be able to understand user input that's not exact. So for instance, I can say timetable to calendar.
Does this seem right?
So the actual command for that particular command, the actual text expected, is add my timetable to my calendar. But I typed timetable to calendar, but Osiris is able to tell that that is what we want, but it's not entirely sure. So it asks us here, is this what we want? And we say yes.
Sure thing. Just give me a moment to get your timetable. I just sent an ICS file to your email address. You can use this file to add your timetable to your calendar. Hope that helps.
So with that simple command, an ICS file is sent to my email address with all of the lectures, tutorials and labs I have for a particular week in college. But it gives developers the ability to do interesting things to the user interface as well. So we're going to issue this command here, tell me about the accommodation available, and just see what happens here to the user interface when I give this command.
Sure, just give me a moment. Instead of telling you about the on-campus accommodation, why don't I just show you?
So you see what happened there? It actually brought up a YouTube video to show you about the accommodation instead of telling you about it. So you can build scripts and knowledge-based applications that users can interact with conversations and have your application do interesting things like show YouTube videos, send text messages, send email addresses, etc. So the next question really is, how is this accomplished? This is accomplished through the developer portal. So the developer portal here has all of the applications that I have registered in the Osiris service. So we're going to have a look at the University of Limerick application. And you build conversations with the Node Network Builder. So we'll have a look at that now. This is the Node Network Builder. This is actually the conversation hierarchy, and this is how conversations are structured in Osiris. So you see there is different colored nodes in our kind of network diagram here. Green nodes are what's known as entry nodes, and these are expected input to the user from the user. So for instance, one of the green nodes there would be add my timetable to my calendar. The yellow nodes are static action nodes. Static action nodes are nodes that never change, and they're a response. So an action node is always a response to the user, but a static action is a response that will never change. An example of a static action is what can you do, because that will always be the same. Or another example of a static action node would be who made this application. That will always be the same. So there's no need to dynamically generate a response based on context and information available to a script. Red nodes are called dynamic action nodes, and they require context to give a response to the user. And you see here they are linked dynamically and two-way connection to these blue nodes. These blue nodes are what's known as conversation scripts, and this is what provides the mechanism for scripting intelligence within the Osiris platform. Conversation scripts allow developers to give a response to context-sensitive questions back to the user. So for instance, when I asked add my timetable to my calendar, that will be one of these entry nodes, which leads on to an action node, a dynamic action node, which executes this script. This script then gets the timetable and sends the email address, returning the response back to the action and then returning the response back to the user. That's the structure of nodes. We can create different nodes here. We can also create connections between nodes by simply double-clicking them. For example, we could connect this one to this one and establish a connection between them. We can also see some more detailed information about our nodes, our existing entry nodes and existing action nodes. So this is the Node Network Builder is how you actually build conversations, and it's a visual representation of how they look to the user. We also can look here, if we go back, and see the script manager. This is where we register conversation scripts for our scriptable intelligence. You see here we have 3 scripts currently within the University of Limerick application. We have a what's next on my timetable script, a send ICS file script, and a play accommodation video script. So each script has a couple of attributes attached to it. It has a target platform, so currently you can target both Windows and Linux, and we'll talk a bit more about that in a minute. You can write your script in different languages, so currently C# and Java is supported, and you'll see here all these scripts are done in C#, and scripts have an ID. But scripts also have builds. So if we go in here, we can see that there's multiple builds of a script, and you can make builds active or inactive as you please. So as a developer, you can create a version of your script, and in this case you'll see it's an exe file, and it's stored in a zip file. So you store conversation scripts in zip files in a conversation repository. And a conversation repository can be in multiple locations. For instance, we allow conversation repositories on the local machine in a folder. They could be in an S3 bucket, for example. That's up to you as a developer, and there's multiple mechanisms and interfaces for you to use whatever repository location you would like. When we can make builds active or inactive if we want to make changes or if we want to enable developer features. So that's the script manager here, and what's really happening here and what we need to talk about is the conversation router. So scripts are actually executed by a mechanism called the conversation router. The conversation router is an executable jar file that is installed on your own infrastructure. You can have as many conversation routers as you like, and they are what receive a request from the service when a question is asked about your application. The conversation router will then pull down the script that is linked to that node that was reached as part of that conversation, execute it, and return the response from the script. So you see here I have a command prompt open here, and this has been processing all the questions that I've been asking on the user on our application. So you'll see here that when a question comes in, a request was sent, incoming request detected, script downloaded and installed, context was generated, and then it executed a script on my desktop, and it executed that conversation scripts projects.exe and then returned the result to the API. And you see here that's the exe that was executed here, and that was for the send ICS file script that was here. The conversation router understands if it's running on a Windows environment or on a Linux environment. The current Linux operating system that's fully supported is Ubuntu. So if you run the conversation router jar file on a Linux machine, these scripts here would not execute. They would have to be target platform of Linux. And you see here when we add new scripts, we would set the environment that we want them to run on. So that's a brief overview of the Osiris platform for intelligent user interfaces. Next we'll talk a bit more about the identity management platform, but if you'd like to find out more about the Osiris platform, visit go.shanecraven.com and you'll find all the links you need there for more detailed information. So Orion is the identity management platform that's built in to this service. It provides a host of features for managing applications, managing users, and managing permissions. So let's just log in here and to give you an idea of how that works. So this is the main menu of the Orion system. You see here we can edit our account information, so we've registered an account obviously. We can change our email addresses, change our passwords, etc. We can also view our permissions, and this feature is very important. So when I want to use an application that leverages the Orion Identity Management Platform, Orion will require that application to get permission from the user. So you'll see here that all the applications that I use have been given permission by me to use them, and I can see information about the permission I've granted. So I can see I've granted the following information to the University of Limerick application, when that information was granted, etc. But the user has ultimate control over these permissions. So for instance, I can revoke permissions here, and now the University of Limerick application no longer has access to my data. And we can actually show you this by going back to the conversation portal and trying to start a conversation with the University of Limerick. And you see here now that I'm getting a prompt from Orion-Osiris.com to give permission. Now, if this prompt is not granted, no matter what the application code does, it cannot access my data anymore because it no longer has permission to do so. So Orion is built to provide developers with a very easy mechanism to integrate into the Orion platform to get user accounts and logins and everything sorted for you. But the user in the end has ultimate control over what they do and do not let the application see. So I grant permission again, and you'll see here if I refresh this page that I granted permission again today. We can also go and manage our applications. So here's where we actually register new applications within the Orion platform. You see here I have a few different applications. So for instance, we can create an Orion application, but we also see we have to select our requirements, and these were the requirements that we've seen in the permission page earlier. So for instance, if I want to be able to access the user profile, I have to tick that here, and then the user will be told about that when they try to access the system. We also can manage the applications that currently exist, and we can edit them. Now, system accounts are a very important feature of the Identity Management Platform. We can view system accounts. I'm obviously not going to view them now because the system accounts, the actual credentials are secure, obviously, for actually accessing the user information. But we can actually view active system accounts, and system accounts are made up of public keys and secret keys, and I can actually show you a sample one here that's not being used, the OriTube application. So you see we currently have no system accounts within OriTube, so we can create one. And here we have a public key and a secret key. So that public key and secret key needs to be used when you're using the API. And the API is this system here that's available at api.orion-craven.com with multiple different API calls. But there are already pre-built client libraries in both Java and C# to use this API. So you don't need to actually call the API manually. You can use the functions that are pre-built for your language. They're available in NuGet packages in C# at nuget.org, and they're available as a download for Java on downloads.orion.shanecraven.com. Or for any of these links, you should go to go.shanecraven.com. So in order for a system account to be able to be used by another application, so for example, I have a system account here for OriTube, and if I want to integrate the OriTube application with Osiris, then I will have to grant Osiris the ability to find out context in my system account. So I'll have to grant permission to it. And then it requires the application's public ID of the application you want to grant permission to. The public ID of the Osiris system happens to be IUI, so I would find application here. And you see here it wants to access my system account data. I grant permission, and now Osiris can access my system account. That's a very quick overview of the Orion Identity Management Platform, and there's much more about this system that I could talk about. For instance, I could talk about the Federation service, and the Federation service is a completely built single sign-on system for web applications, which is what we're actually using here. So for instance, here is the Federation service. You see here we have Federation login, and it says login with your Orion account. But this is a single sign-on service for any application that leverages it. So for instance, Osiris is an application that leverages the single sign-on service. So if I try to go to the application store now, you'll see that I've been brought to the same URL, but it's tailored by app ID and return URL. This service will handle all the login, permission granting, two-factor authentication of that service for me to use. So for instance, I can log in here, and now I've been logged into Osiris, but I've also been logged back in to the Orion service, even though I logged out immediately. And I can go to go.shanecraven.com, and if I try and create a Go link here, you'll know that I'll be logged in as well because of the fact that I signed in to Federation. So see, it knows who I am. So that's a brief overview of my final year project. If you have any questions, you can feel free to email me at contact@shane.craven.com. So thanks very much for viewing,